On the morning I turned 64, I didn't expect much, but somehow, the day still managed to break my heart in a way I never thought possible. When I got to my daughter Rachel's house, the table was already set. There were plastic forks, cold potato salad, and a store-bought carrot cake I couldn't even eat because I'm allergic to it. They'd hung up a cheap birthday banner, and they'd even spelled my name wrong. Jacob, my oldest grandson, was sprawled in a patio chair like he owned the place. He was 19, full of attitude, puffing on that vape like it was the only air left. He didn't bother to look up when I said hello. Rachel kept fiddling with the decorations, pretending not to see her husband, already drunk. I had brought a tray of deviled eggs I'd made early that morning, thinking maybe someone would appreciate them. No one touched them. I told myself to smile, just get through it. Maybe I could scrape the frosting off the cake and eat a little. That hope lasted about 10 minutes. Jacob started yelling at his little brother over some video game nonsense. I stepped in, my voice tired but calm, and said, "Let's keep the peace. Today it's my birthday." That was all it took. Jacob jumped up, stood right in front of me, and snarled, "You always act like you're the boss. You're not anymore." I couldn't even answer before he slapped me right across the face. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a joke. My plastic fork fell to the ground. My cheek burned hot and red. I looked around the table, waiting for anyone to say something. Rachel turned pale but said nothing. Her husband reached for another beer. The younger kids dropped their eyes to their plates. No one asked if I was okay. No one told him to stop. I just stood there, holding that dumb paper plate while the cake started to slide off. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't pull in a full breath. But I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I set the plate down, reached into my apron pocket, and pulled out a scratch-off ticket I'd bought that morning as a little treat. I slipped it into my purse and said, "I'm going to lie down." I went into the guest room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling my cheek throb and my heart ache even worse. I waited for someone to knock and check on me. Nobody came. After an hour, I stood up, picked up my purse, and walked right out the front door. No goodbye, no second look. My car was parked 2 blocks away. I got in, started the engine, and just kept driving. I didn't stop until I saw an old motel with a flickering vacancy sign. I paid cash, checked in, and locked the door behind me. I sat down on the bed, staring at my purse. My hands were still shaking when I pulled out the lottery ticket. I hadn't scratched it yet. I took a quarter from my keychain and started scraping off the numbers. When I saw the result, I had to blink a few times to make sure I was reading it right. $5 million. I didn't scream or jump up and down. I let out a small, bitter laugh. Then I started crying so hard my whole body shook. Not because of the money, but because it finally hit me that I really didn't matter to them. But maybe, just maybe, I could matter to myself. I didn't sleep that night. The sheets were stiff and smelled like bleach. The air conditioner rattled so loud it drowned out my thoughts, which was almost a blessing. I kept glancing over at the ticket on the nightstand, half expecting the numbers to vanish and turn it back into just another worthless piece of paper. But it didn't. $5 million still real, still mine. And all I could feel was tired. I couldn't stop thinking about Jacob's face after he hit me. It was so blank, like he wasn't even looking at his grandmother, just some person in his way. But even worse than his face were the others around that table. Rachel didn't say a word. Her husband turned away, like it was all just an inconvenience. I kept replaying that moment in my head, over and over, trying to figure out if I'd done something to deserve it. But no matter how many times I looked at it from different angles, the truth was the same. I'd become invisible to them. I wasn't Grandma anymore. I wasn't Ellie. I wasn't even Mom. I was just another piece of furniture in their lives. The next morning, I went down to the motel lobby and poured myself a free cup of coffee. I sat by the window and took a crumpled takeout menu out of my purse. On the back, I wrote a note. It said, "Don't call. I'm not lost. I'm done. I'll be safe. Don't come looking. I don't want to be found." I didn't even sign my name. I just folded it up and mailed it to Rachel from the gas station next door. After that, I called the lottery office. I didn't want a big check or my picture in the paper. I asked the woman on the phone if I could claim it without anyone knowing. She said, "We get that more than you'd think." I told her I'd doubt that. Later that day, I drove 2 towns away, bought a cheap phone and a simple laptop, and checked into another motel under a different name, Louise Carey, my mom's maiden name. I wasn't scared. Honestly, It felt like I'd finally stepped off stage in the middle of a bad play, like I should have done it years ago. 4 days later, the money showed up in a trust account. I moved half into a new bank under an LLC the lottery lawyer set up. Just like that, I wasn't broke anymore, but I sure didn't feel rich, not in any way that counted. I sat in that motel room, eating peanut butter crackers and watching old courtroom shows, wondering if Rachel had read my note, wondering if she cried, wondering if Jacob even noticed I was gone. On the 5th day, something changed. I was scrolling through Instagram on the new phone, just tapping through photos of bakeries. When the kids were little, I used to dream about opening my own bakery before everything got hard, before my husband got sick, before the bills piled up, before life became something I was just trying to survive. That's when I saw Hurley, Jacob's ex-wife. She was in a little kitchen, flour all over her apron, holding a tray of blueberry scones. She looked tired but proud. The caption said, "Still just dreaming. Flowers cheaper than hope." I stared at that picture for a long time. She had always been good to me. Even after she and Jacob split, she called me Miss Ellie. She used to bring me chamomile tea when I had migraines. When she left, nobody even bothered to tell me. She just disappeared, like she'd never been part of the family at all. I clicked on her profile. Single mom, part-time line cook, still sharing sketches of the bakery she wanted to open someday. And right then, for the first time since I'd walked out, I felt something that wasn't sadness or anger. It was something warmer, something that felt a little like justice. I opened the messages, I typed, then erased, then typed again. Finally, I sent, "You still want to bake?" I didn't expect her to answer right away. Who would reply to such a strange message from a random account? But sending it felt like striking a little match inside me. 2 days passed before she wrote back, "Who is this?" My heart thumped like I was doing something wrong. I typed, "Ellie, Jacob's grandmother, I'm safe. I have something I want to talk to you about if you're still in Savannah." The next day she replied, "You're serious?" "I am," I wrote back. She sent me the address of a cafe near her apartment and told me to meet her Thursday at 3. I got there early, around 2:40. My hands were shaking so badly, I spilled tea on the table before she even showed up. When she finally walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was pulled back tight. She had dark circles under her eyes. She was carrying a sleeping toddler, Mia, I guessed, though I'd never met her. She looked at me like she wasn't sure she should even sit down. I said, "It's really me." Her shoulders dropped, like she'd been holding up something heavy for years. She slid into the seat across from me, laid Mia down in the booth, and said, "What happened?" So I told her everything. No sugarcoating. The slap, the silence, the motel, the lottery ticket, the $5 million. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. She didn't interrupt. When I was finished, she looked me straight in the eye and asked, quietly, "Why me?" I told Lily the truth. She had always treated me like a real person, not just some burden she had to deal with. I remembered how she made soup and left it on my porch the time I had carbon monoxide poisoning, even though Jacob told her not to. Bafta, I remembered how she used to talk about opening her own bakery and would draw little pretend menus for fun. "I want to help you build it," I said. "You've got the talent. I've got the money." Her lips started to tremble, and she looked away, like she didn't dare let herself hope. Then she asked, "What's the catch?" "There isn't one," I told her. "I just want to do something good with someone good." She didn't cry right then, but I did. Quiet tears behind my teacup while little Mia snored softly in the booth. We agreed to meet again in 2 days to talk about the details, locations, names, everything. When I left that cafe, I didn't just walk out. I floated. For the first time since leaving Charleston, I felt like I had a purpose again. Back at the motel, I started writing out a plan how to set up an LLC. What permits we'd need, how much the startup costs might be. I even found an old worn-down storefront just a couple blocks from a middle school. The rent was cheap, and the kitchen was big. The next day, the lawyer from the lottery trust called to remind me about paperwork and deadlines. I told him I had a plan, now a real one. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, looking at my makeup, sagging skin, gray roots poking through, and whispered, "You're not done." For the first time in years, I actually believed it. I didn't know then what was coming, the gossip, the mess, the lies Jacob would spread. But I already knew one thing as clear as day: Lily deserved a chance to rise. And so did I. 2 days later, we met again, This time at a little diner near her apartment. Mia was wide awake, chewing on a jelly packet while Lily and I sat there like two women trying to build a whole new world from broken pieces. Lily brought a spiral notebook stuffed with bakery sketches and name ideas. Some scribbled so fast I had to squint to read them, things like honey salt rolls and brown butter church cake. She looked nervous, like if she let herself believe this could be real, it might disappear. I told her about the storefront I'd found, how it used to be a dry cleaner, how the back room would be perfect for ovens, how it sat on a walkable corner near the school and a community center. She asked me 5 times if I was sure I wanted to spend this much money. I told her the truth again. This isn't charity, it's correction. I didn't go into all the details about how Rachel used to call her too sensitive, or how Jacob liked to say she wasn't smart enough to run anything. Lily already knew. I could see it in how carefully she moved, like someone who'd been told over and over that she was too much and somehow not enough at the same time. That afternoon, we decided on a name, Second Rise. It was Lily's idea. She said it was about dough, but also about us people who'd been knocked down but got back up anyway. I didn't cry this time. I just smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. Over the next few days, everything started happening fast. We hired a contractor to rip out the old dry cleaner equipment. We met with the permit officer. He recognized me from the grocery store I used to work at, though he didn't say anything. We bought used ovens from a closing cafe and signed the lease in cash. Lily started testing recipes in her little apartment kitchen. She baked until 2 in the morning sometimes, while Mia napped on a flour-dusted blanket on the floor. I spent hours figuring out how to run payroll, set up insurance, and buy supplies from local farmers markets. At 64, these were things I never thought I'd care about. Now I clung to them like they were air. The more we built, the more alive I felt. Every time I picked out chairs or tasted a test batch of cinnamon rolls, I wasn't just funding a bakery. I was taking back something I'd lost a long time ago, the right to matter. One night, Lily fell asleep with her head on the counter, surrounded by sticky notes and flour. I looked at her and thought, she was never the problem. They were. I knew this bakery wouldn't just be about pastries. It was about proving to ourselves and everyone else that we still had something to give. We were creating something good, not out of spite, but in spite of everything. And when I watched Mia toddle across the unfinished tile floor, clapping her little hands, while Lily finally slept with a smile on her face, I realized I hadn't thought about Jacob in over a week. He hadn't called, neither had Rachel. Maybe they hadn't noticed I was still gone. Maybe they had, but it didn't matter anymore, because I'd found something better than being needed. I'd found what it felt like to be wanted. The day we hung the sign, a wooden board painted by hand with gold letters that read Second Rise, something clicked inside me, like the last piece of a puzzle finally sliding into place. I didn't realize it until then, but I'd been building toward this my whole life. We stood out on the sidewalk, just staring up at our little bakery. Lily had Mia balanced on her hip, and I had a paint-splattered rag stuffed in my pocket. For a moment, neither of us said a word. It wasn't fancy. It didn't look shiny or polished like the big chain stores down the street. But it felt honest. It felt like it belonged here like we did. Inside, the air smelled like yeast and burnt sugar. The tile floor was still sticky in one corner, but somehow it already felt like home. Lily had turned that kitchen into something special, even though we barely had any money to spend. She stayed up late, using every trick she'd learned from those years working in greasy diners. We tested muffins until our mouths went numb. We argued over exactly how much cinnamon belonged in the sweet rolls. Some afternoons, we did nothing but figure out how to get the crust on her sweet tea pie just right. I taught myself how to use the cash register. I ordered uniforms in 3 sizes, too big just in case. I even fixed a leaky bathroom sink by watching a YouTube video and using an old pair of pliers I bought from a pawn shop. It was work, lots of it, but not the kind that leaves you feeling empty. This work filled us up. It gave shape to all that lonely space we'd been carrying around. Mia became our little mascot. She'd run around in a tiny apron that said Flower Boss and hand out pretend cookies to customers waiting for their real ones. When we finally opened the doors, we didn't make any big announcement. We just unlocked them on a Saturday and hoped someone would come in. They did. Not in huge crowds, at least not at first. But enough to feel seen. A man from the community center stopped by for a plain black coffee and left with 2 pecan bars. A nurse from the clinic down the street took a picture of our chalkboard menu and shared it on Facebook. Pretty soon, people started trickling in saying things like, "My coworker told me about you," or "I saw you on my friend's feed." Word spread faster than I'd ever expected. And every time someone took a bite and told Lily, "This tastes like home," something tugged at my chest. It wasn't pain. It wasn't pride. Exactly. It felt older than that, like redemption. We kept things simple. Just 3 menu items at first. Cash only. No fancy logos. Just good food and warm faces. But every night when we locked up, I'd sit in the back with a cup of tea and feel a peace I'd never known. Not even when my kids were little and needed me all the time. This was different. This was the peace that comes from being wanted, not just needed. From being chosen. All through it, I stayed invisible. No photos of me, no mention of where the money came from. It was Lily's face and Lily's story out front hand. That was more than enough to inspire people. I watched her bloom into herself, confident, sure, laughing in a way I'd never seen her laugh before. And I thought maybe this feeling was what motherhood was supposed to be like. One night after we closed, Lily and I sat out back on old milk crates, passing a bottle of cheap wine between us. She asked, "Do you think they miss you?" I didn't have to ask who she meant. I looked up at the sky where a plane blinked through the dark and said, "Maybe, but they don't get to see this version of me. Only you do." She nodded, and we clinked our plastic cups together like it really meant something, because it did. It was a Wednesday morning when everything changed. Not with a big drama, but with a quiet little ping. Lily's phone buzzed 3 times in a row while she was loading croissants into the warmer. She picked it up, checked the screen, and looked at me with this tight, worried expression I didn't like one bit. "Someone posted about us," she said. "A food blog." My stomach dropped before she even showed me. It wasn't a huge blog, just a regional foodie account with about 10,000 followers. But there I was, blurry in the background of a picture taken during our soft opening. You could see me half turned away, my head down, holding a tray of muffins by the back door. The post was all about how good the pecan bars were and how inspiring Lily's story was. She'd shared a little with the blogger, not realizing they'd take photos too. At first, I tried to calm myself down. I tried to believe no one would recognize me from that angle. But deep down, I knew Jacob would. And I was right. Within hours, he messaged the bakery's Instagram account. He demanded to speak to me. "No, she's with you," he wrote. "This is sick. What is she doing with you? What is this twisted little project?" Lily showed me the messages right away. Her hands were shaking. Her jaw was tight. "I'm blocking him," she said. But I stopped her. "Not yet," I said. "Let's wait. Let's see what he does." I don't even know why I said that. Maybe part of me still hoped he'd say sorry. Maybe part of me still believed he could. I just wanted to see how far Jacob would go. Turns out, pretty far. By Friday, my daughter Rachel had called the bakery's main phone 5 times in one afternoon. She left 2 voicemails. The first started with, "Mom, is this you?" And the last ended with, "You can't just disappear like this. What are you doing?" I didn't call her back. I couldn't, not yet. Not when everything inside me still felt raw and sore. I told Lily I'd deal with it when I was ready. But for now, we had work to do, buckets of dough to prep, regulars, to greet, invoices, to sort. That night, after we closed, I went back to my motel room, pulled out my cheap little laptop, and searched my own name. I hadn't done that before. Mostly it was just old records and old job listings. But now there was something new. A Facebook post from some girl who used to date Jacob, someone I'd barely ever met. She'd written, "Y'all seen this? Pretty sure that's Jacob's grandma at that new bakery in Savannah. The one who disappeared after he slapped her." The post had likes, comments, shares. She rich now or something? Didn't she win the lottery? Wait, he slapped her. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. Instead, I just shut it and sat there in the dark, listening to the low hum of the fridge. The next morning, I told Lily, "We need to get ahead of this. I'm not hiding anymore," I said. "But I'm not explaining myself either. Not to people who don't deserve answers." She nodded. We agreed. No press, no interviews, no more photos of me. Just keep baking. Let the work speak. But Jacob didn't want to let it go. A week later, he showed up in person. Drove all the way from Charleston in a beat-up white car with no hubcaps. He stood outside the bakery, pacing back and forth like a stray dog waiting for scraps. Lily saw him through the window. She locked the door, pulled down the shades, and called the police. He didn't try to come in, just stood there for 15 minutes, muttering into his phone. When he finally left, he sped off so fast he knocked over our sandwich board sign. When I stepped outside, the air smelled like burnt rubber and something bitter I couldn't name. I picked up the chalkboard. Someone had written across it in black marker, "She abandoned her family for this." I didn't cry, I just wiped it clean and walked back in. Lily was holding Mia close, whispering, "It's okay, baby, it's okay," over and over again. That night, as I swept flour into the corners and counted the cash drawer, it hit me. This wasn't just about a photo or a rumor. It was a crack in the dam. My old life had found me, and it wasn't going to fade quietly. It only took 4 more days before things got uglier. Jacob went on some little podcast out of Charleston, called Family Truths Unfiltered. The host was just a guy who used to bartend with him. But there he was, talking about me to whoever would listen. Lily found the episode first. She played me a clip on her phone, her hand shaking. I listened to Jacob's voice say, "I just don't understand how someone could win that kind of money and abandon their family. She raised us, and then she just disappears. And now she's funding my ex-wife's revenge bakery." The host laughed. "Damn, man, that's wild." Jacob kept going. His voice cracked in just the right way to sound sad, not angry. "I loved her," he said. "I used to call her every week. I'd pick her up from the pharmacy. I helped her with bills when I could. All lies. I was the one who gave him gas money when he was broke. I was the one who bought his groceries when his card got declined. I was the one who sat in the car outside the DMV at 6 in the morning so he wouldn't have to stand in line. But on that podcast, I was just an ungrateful ghost with a fat bank account and a grudge. And Lily, she was the wicked woman who'd turned me against my own family. I didn't cry when I heard it. I didn't even get mad. I just felt hollow, like he'd taken a knife to all my memories and cut out only the parts that made him look good. The episode started spreading online, clipped and shared by people who only knew one version of the story, the loud one. Pretty soon, our bakery's page was filling up with nasty messages. "Shame on you. Hope karma gets you. She's just using you for attention." I wanted to delete every comment, to scream the truth until somebody believed me. But Lily stopped me. She put her hand on my arm and said, "Let them scream. We keep serving." So we did. But every morning after that, I could feel my hands curling a little tighter, like I was bracing for whatever came next. When I needed to knead dough or smile at a customer, it all had to push through a heavy fog sitting in my chest. The hardest part wasn't the nasty comments or even Jacob showing up. It was the voicemail from Rachel. She didn't say much, just, "I heard it. I don't know what to believe anymore. Call me, please." And for a moment, I almost did. I almost pressed redial to tell her that Jacob was lying, that he was twisting stories into something shiny and cruel, burying me under it all. But then, I thought about that day, my birthday, how she just stood there frozen, how she didn't speak up or move, didn't even flinch when her own son hit me. The phone stayed on the counter, and so did my words. Instead, I did the only thing that still made sense. I baked. I scrubbed pans until my shoulders ached. I taught Mia how to fold napkins, and every time she messed up, she burst into giggles that made my chest ache in a good way. I stood beside Lily while she perfected a lemon lavender cookie that sold out every time we made it. I lived loudly, in the quietest way possible. But I knew something had changed. The bakery wasn't just a dream anymore, it had turned into a battleground. And whether I liked it or not, I was the villain in someone else's story now. Rachel showed up on a Tuesday without warning. She was standing outside the bakery in jeans and a hoodie, like she thought she might blend in. But I knew her from the way she held her shoulders tight, like she was bracing for a hit. Lily spotted her first. She didn't say a word, just nodded toward the window and slipped into the back with Mia, giving me space I hadn't asked for but badly needed. I walked out, still holding a dish towel, my heart thumping so hard it felt like it might crack a rib. When I opened the door, Rachel just looked at me for a long time. Her voice was rough when she finally said, "Hi, Mom." It sounded like the words had to fight their way past a lump in her throat, and I noticed how tired she looked, older, like the weight of pretending everything was fine had finally sunk into her bones. I didn't hug her, I didn't cry, I just said, "Do you want some tea?" She nodded and followed me inside without another word. We sat at a little corner table while Lily took Mia out for a walk. I poured us each a mug of chamomile like it was just any other day and not the first time I'd seen my daughter since everything cracked apart. Rachel didn't touch her tea. She just stared at it. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't know what to do that day. When Jacob hit you, I froze. And then you left. And I thought maybe you just needed time. But then the ticket, and Lily, and the podcast, it all just..." She trailed off and swallowed hard, eyes darting away from mine. "I didn't stop him," she said. "I should have." I didn't answer right away. 1,000 things came to mind, some sharp enough to cut, some almost forgiving, but I stayed quiet and let her talk. She told me she'd tried calling and emailing. She'd even driven by my house a few times. But when she heard my voice on the bakery voicemail, she figured I didn't want to be found. I told her she was right. I said I didn't leave because of the slap. I left because of the silence after it. Because a slap hurts, but silence, it rots you from the inside out. She wiped her eyes and whispered, "He's not okay, Mom. Jacob, he's falling apart. Spending money he doesn't have. Drinking too much. Blaming everyone but himself. He keeps saying, you chose her over him." I looked at her and said, "I didn't pick her over him. I picked dignity over denial. He just ended up on the wrong side of both." Rachel laughed then, a sad, broken sound that made my heart twist. And she said something I didn't expect. "I wish I had your strength." I looked at her for a long time, remembering all the different versions of her: the little girl who used to braid my hair while I made pancakes, the teenager who slammed doors but always came back to say she was sorry, the young mom who called me in the middle of the night when her babies wouldn't stop crying. I didn't forgive her completely, not right then, but I saw her again, saw that part of her that was still mine. When she stood to leave, we didn't hug. We just looked at each other, two women with too many scars between them, and she said, "If you ever want to come back, the door's open, no pressure." I said, "Thank you," and I meant it even if I didn't know whether I'd ever walk through that door again. After Rachel left, Lily came back with Mia asleep on her shoulder and asked if I was okay. "I think so," I said. Then I picked up a tray of shortbread cookies and went back to work. Because when your world tries to tip you over, sometimes all you can do is bake it steady again. We set the grand opening date for the second Saturday in April, not because it meant anything special, just because we were ready. Or at least as ready as two women running on caffeine and hope could be. If we waited for perfect, we knew we'd never open. We hung balloons and chalked a sign out front that read, "Soft like your grandma's biscuits, bold like her secrets, baked like our lives depended on it." The line started forming an hour before we unlocked the door. First, it was two women from the clinic down the street, then a couple who drove in from the next town after seeing us on Facebook. A family showed up because their cousin had sent them a post about the lavender cookies. It was working. People were coming. The buzz was real. For that first hour, it felt like the world had finally turned the page. Then, I saw him, Jacob, standing across the street, hands stuffed into the pockets of his hoodie, pacing like an angry dog. I froze, watched him glaring at the bakery like it owed him something. Then I turned back to the register and told myself he couldn't hurt us now. But I was wrong. He didn't come inside. Instead, he stood there with his phone out, recording a live video. He narrated it like some twisted documentary. "Here's the place she built with stolen money, funded by betrayal. She replaced us with strangers, my own grandmother." People started whispering. A few stepped out of line. Some walked away. Lily saw it, too. Her face tightened. She asked if we should call the police again. I shook my head. Let's serve the ones who stayed. We kept working through it, hands moving fast, smiles thinner. But the mood had changed. Then a reporter showed up. Not national, but local enough that people would see it. She asked if she could talk to me, said she just wanted both sides. I told her, "The ovens are hot and so is the line. Pick one." I thought that would be the end of it. But the next night, there was a segment on the evening news. Family Feud bakes into Savannah business. They showed our sign, blurry shots of Jacob yelling, and a freeze frame of me wiping my hands on my apron, looking like the villain in someone else's redemption story. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bakery floor with my legs crossed, staring at the mixers, like they could tell me how everything had spun this far out of control. But then something happened I didn't expect. The next morning, a woman I'd never seen came in, mid-60s, soft voice, carrying a tray of homemade banana bread. She said, "I saw the news. I know who you are. I just wanted to say thank you for not giving up." She didn't even leave her name. Just set the bread down and walked out. That was the first. Then came more. A pastor and his wife dropped off a card. A retired teacher brought hand-stitched napkins. A teenage girl came in crying, saying she'd watched the clip and realized her own grandmother deserved better. They didn't just buy scones, they stayed, they talked, they posted photos and left messages of support. The next Saturday, our line wrapped around the block. The noise didn't stop the gossip, the shouting, but we got louder in our own quiet way. Every cookie sold, every loaf sliced, every child who danced to the radio while waiting for a brownie, those were our answers. That night, I stood by the front window, apron still dusty with flour, and watched Lily laughing with two regulars. Mia was on the floor, coloring, and I realized this wasn't about Jacob anymore, or Rachel, or the past. It was about building something that could outlast all of them, something that could rise. I wrote the letter late one night after closing, sitting in the office with a lukewarm cup of tea and the hum of the fridge for company. I'd thought about writing it a dozen times before, but this time it felt like something I needed to do, not for closure, not for forgiveness, just to put the last piece of the story where it belonged. I folded a plain sheet of paper in half and started with his name, Jacob. Then I paused, letting the pen hover like I was waiting for a sign. There wasn't one. Just my own breath, slow and steady, finally settled in my chest. I wrote, "I didn't leave because you slapped me. I left because you believed you couldn't, because everyone else believed staying silent was easier than telling you no." The rest came easier. I told him I was safe, that I wasn't hiding, that I hadn't picked Lily to hurt him. I picked her because she showed up when no one else did. "You weren't replaced. You removed yourself. There's a difference." I didn't say I hated him. I didn't say I forgave him. I just told the truth. That I hoped one day he'd understand what it meant to build something instead of breaking it. That I hoped he'd learn how to take responsibility without turning it into a performance. And because I knew he'd hear it louder than anything else, I ended it with the name he hadn't called me in years, Lala. I sealed it in an envelope, no return address, just his name on the front. I left it on the counter with a sticky note, "Deliver to the kid in the hoodie if he comes back." Then I walked out, not far, just down the block to the park where Mia was chasing pigeons and Lily was sitting with her feet propped up on the bench, sipping coffee like she finally believed she belonged there. I sat beside her. We didn't say much, just watched the afternoon light hit the sidewalk, turning all the cracks into shining gold veins. I thought about everything I'd lost years' time, pieces of myself I'd given away to isolate, and I realized I wasn't bitter. I was full. Not just with love or peace or pride, but something stronger. I had built something, not just a bakery or a business, but a place where the best parts of me could exist without apology, where a little girl could grow up knowing strong women weren't the exception, where I was more than what they remembered, so much more than what they forgot. I leaned back, closed my eyes for a moment, and smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because it didn't own me anymore. I was here, I was home. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.